something is going to get banned next Monday. Let's be honest, Modern, Pauper, Legacy, something is going to go, and they might even unban something, honestly. If Twin or even Pod got unbanned, I think I'd probably shed a tear. It'd be this great moment of nostalgia winning, the member berries coming back to bring people back into the favorite format that we all have in Modern, but that is in the future. I wanted to stay in the present a little bit and talk about some of the innovations, the adaptations that many decks have had, especially in the tier 2 to tier 3 range, that have been ways to fight the One Ring, fight the combo decks, fight the Murktide decks. And I wanted to really highlight them, point them out to show people how folks can adapt to future meta games and maybe attack decks that may not get banned at all. Now, of course, I can't touch on every list. I'm not aware of every single Magic card out there in Modern. So if you have sideboard tech that you've been using or you've been seeing success with, and I didn't mention it, comment it down below. I think there are a lot of them that are worth pointing out. I'll try and kind of favorite all of them just so people can kind of look through. And so that way we can all maybe use this as a collective brewing video or something to take a look through and take to future metagames to succeed with. Now, the Modern metagame specifically, I don't want to focus on the tier 1 of it all. I'm really looking at the tier 2s, you know, the Mill, Hardened Scales, Merfolk, Lantern. Like, I'm really looking at these type of strategies and how they've been able to evolve, because these are the decks that have been fighting the uphill battle. These are the ones that have had to adapt and transform a lot more to fight not only what Modern Horizons has been doing with the format, but with what years of just kind of design for Modern sets have been doing to our favorite format. Now, the first deck list that I want to talk about is Modern Humans, a deck list that I've had a lot of experience with in the past. I was relatively late to the game, but I played this deck for almost a year. I have a very fond, you know, kind of feeling for it, a lot of memories with this list. And you know, it's adapted some of the energy package, but it's done some fun things too to counter that. Specifically, Sun Cleanser, a more common sideboard piece that we see these days. When it enters the battlefield, remove all counters from target creature. It can't have counters put onto it for as long as Sun Cleanser enters the battlefield. So, you know, niche scenarios where this is relevant against certain artifacts. And the target opponent loses all counters. That player can't gain counters for as long as Sun Cleanser remains on the battlefield. So even with, so when it enters the battlefield, a trigger goes on the stack. Even when this enters the battlefield and triggers, your opponent is kind of set on the back foot as to how they can deal with this. A Galvanic Discharge can't even deal with this in response to the ETB because it can only produce 3 energy to then deal with its 4 toughness. If you're on the draw, your opponent would have to use 2 energy sources at least to be able to deal with this ETB on the stack. Even though it dies, they're still going to lose all the counters. And I mean, that's got to be value for something, right? Like, they're going to have to use all their Galvanic Discharge counters or all their energy to try and remove this. If they have any left over, you're going to be able to remove that. Heck, if something else has counters on it, you're going to be able to remove that as well, maybe in response later in the game. It's a great piece of sideboard tech just at a 1/4, and a card that I'm happy from the core set that is able to see kind of value there. So that's really cool. The next one is Gaddock Teague, a Modern classic. Honestly, this used to be the Coco Dex counter to this used to be the Coco Dex counter or one up to like Tron decks, right? Non-creature spells with mana value 4 or greater can't be cast. This stops Karn the Great Creator. This stops Karn Liberated. Heck, this stops the One Ring. Non-creature spells with X in their mana cost can't be cast is also relevant with Kozilek's Command as well. This is just a great sideboard card. Again, one that you can collected company out. So if you're playing like those life gain strategies, regardless, it's a Kitkin Advisor, so you don't get like the human synergies out of it, but it's just a great like creature based piece of sideboard tech. It used to be like one of those old like prison commanders and everything, so I always love to see Gaddock Teague make its way back in the metagame. So it's always fun to see like the various promos and just the various reprints of it. We got like got it on the list. It was last printed in UMA. Lot of good stuff coming out of Gaddock Teague. Happy to see this card's relevancy again against the One Ring and against stuff like Kozilek's Command to be able to fight a larger part of the metagame. Now, the last one I want to mention out of Modern Horizons 3, this is more recent tech. This card's really cool because it's an MDFC. So this is one of those Bolt MDFCs that you can bring in as a plane. So it's a great like mana source. What's great about this is it's also a human, so you get, like, on the front side, you get those human synergies. It is 4, but when Witch's Enchanter enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Notably, this is not dealing with the One Ring. One Ring has indestructible, but it is able to deal with, like, static prisons and leyline bindings and other things that do have or are able to be destroyed. So it's nice that, like, main board option helps fix a little bit, is searchable because on the front side it's that spell, and has a lot of I like cards like this, right? It's Modern Horizons 3, yes, but it has that niche playability. It's that MDFC that provides that extra oomph to a lot of these decks. So I'm really excited to see where a card like this can provide future value in future combo decks, or heck, even future creature based strategies. So I really like to see something like this come out of Modern Horizons 3. More of this, less Nadu, please. The next deck that I want to talk about overall is Dredge. Another favorite of mine. I was a Dredge player. I was a Faithless Looting savant. I enjoyed the hell out of that card. Unban Faithless Looting, ban Endurance, not biased at all. Now, Dredge has actually had a fair amount of tech, right? It's slowed down, it's sped up, it's played Life from the Loam, it hasn't played Loam. This list specifically is playing Loam, so obviously they're playing Conflagrate to kind of have that long game effect. But the tech specifically that I want to mention is firstly Vengeful Pharaoh out of the sideboard. I actually really like this. Notably, so let's read the effect first before I go into the notably. Whenever combat damage is dealt to you or a planeswalker you control, if Vengeful Pharaoh is in your graveyard, you're going to be dredging, it's going to be in there. Destroy target crouching attacking creature, then put Vengeful Pharaoh on top of your library. This would usually be a downside, but what's great about it is you're dredging, so it's always just going to go back into your graveyard over and over again. If you're attacking with like 2 or more creatures, you can only choose to kill one of them. So that's the thing to note, but specifically against decks like Murktide or Frog, where they're usually only working with one threat to get ahead of you and just deal damage to you. What's great about something like this is that if it deals damage to you, then you're gonna be able to kill it, and you're gonna be able to kill like one threat, because that's what the deck is trying to do. They have a giant Murktide coming at you, great, kill that Murktide, and then your Creeping Chills are going to be able to get you back in the game. If they want to kill you with Frog, then they're only going to be able to attack you with once. Even if they attack you with multiple threats, you can choose which one to attack with. So if they're attacking with different things that you don't really care about, whatever deals damage to you, whatever you care about the most, get rid of that. And then this is also to you or a planeswalker you control. I believe Psychic Frog off the top of my head also draws a card if it deals damage to a planeswalker. So specifically against Psychic Frog, if it's able to destroy one of your planeswalkers. Obviously this is Dredge, that's not really relevant, but just talking about how this is just a cool piece of sideboard tech in general. If we were in a Faithless Looting era, maybe it would have been played more, but just that kind of soft piece of relevancy should it matter in the future. The next card I want to talk about is Wonder, because in a game or in a meta game where boards are full, they either have very tall threats that your Narcomoebas can't, you know, go past, or I mean, Narcomoeba is a bad example, it already has flying, but I should say prized amalgams that can go past, it's getting chump blocked. Wonder in your graveyard is able to give your creatures flying. Get over top of the cat tokens from the Ajani and anything else that's gumming up the board. Get over top, fly over, and get your lethal damage. I love Wonder in the sideboard. This has been in here for a hot minute, actually, as far as I'm aware. I've been trying to keep up with the Dredge decks as much as possible, but it, you know, got printed in on Modern Horizons 2 into Modern, and again, has been a piece of Dredge tech for a minute. This is it's such a good one. I'm a big fan of this, giving your Dredge creatures evasion. A lot of creatures that are recursive, that's the kind of big boon that Dredge has to work with. But not only do we need recursion with your landfall triggers, your life gain triggers off the Silver Smoke Ghoul, or if you're playing the black 2/1 with haste, if you have an opponent has 10 or less life, that creature also, those creatures also require a little bit of evasion, not just recursion, to have that value in the current Modern metagame. The next deck that I want to talk about is Sultai Infect. Now, look, it's not, I haven't completely lost the plot here. I understand this is a One Ring deck. I understand this is a One Ring deck, but I actually recently played this deck, right? And it was for not only the fact that it was a One Ring deck, but the card that really interested me was Phyrexian Crusader, another Modern classic, right? We had a Secret Lair drop of this sucker, Phyrexian Crusader. Look at this. First strike, great. Protection from red and white. Come on, protection from Boros energy. That's what this says. It's a 2/2, so it doesn't get sniped out by Orcish Bowmasters, obviously it can, you ping it and then block it with the Orc token. That's perfectly fine. But then, you know, you probably have some amount of protection spells as well. This is just a great option against the Boros energy decks. Heck, even the energy decks out of the Mardu energy decks, I should say. This deck is even playing Eldritch Evolution to get rid of like Ignoble Hierarchs or Noble Hierarchs to then turn them into Phyrexian Crusaders. It's not even playing the one drop. Actually, this list is interesting. It's not even playing, I didn't even realize it was playing Ignoble Hierarchs. I thought it was just the Noble Hierarchs. It's not even playing the one drop. It's not even playing the one drop infect creature. It just wants to go land Eldritch Evolution, land again, tap all three, Eldritch Evolution, sack the Hierarch, play the Phyrexian Crusaders. It just wants to play 8 copies of Phyrexian Crusader, which is the big evolution. I actually thought maybe it wanted to naturally do that, but this is even better. This is even a more consistent way to get into Phyrexian Crusader as a way to gain protection from Galvanic Discharge, Static Prisons, just get away and out underneath all of the creatures that deck can put out in front of you. It's just great. This is just a really cool option that you can get out early, and that's a ramp effect that you can get out on turn 2. The ring comes down on 4 in that deck, so even if they flage, they can't even flage this, I should say. Even if they flage, that's going to be dealing damage to you. Chances are this Phyrexian Crusader, once you untap on turn 3, you throw a bunch of spells into it, you throw a scale up and a bunch of stuff onto it, this thing's going to win you the game. There's no way they're going to be able to answer a card like this. So bringing out a modern classic to get around tech right now. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there is a way. The next card that I want to mention, this has been around for a little bit, I would say, specifically out of the Domain Zoo deck. I think this highlights it well, but notably the energy decks do play this. I did not want to highlight this with an energy deck, but I'm kind of cheating. This is a meta deck, so I have to point out Obsidian Charmaw. Costs 1 less for each land your opponent controls that produces colorless mana. Specifically, can't be generic mana, has to be colorless mana. Obsidian Charmaw then could cast be played for red, and then when Obsidian Charmaw enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. So this is that type of hate against the colorless strategies, against the Tron strategies, against the soul lands, just all that type of stuff that's in modern right now. Just being able to fight those, the Eldrazi temples, and I'm forgetting the name of the soul land where you have to exile a 7 CMC or more card underneath it just to get the soul land effect. But Obsidian Charmaw is a real cool piece of tech that we've had out of Modern Horizons 2. This is the type of card that I feel like really could have been in a non-Modern Horizons set. It just feels like the type of hate that like makes sense for like a standard, like I don't know, like any type of like standard metagame. But I guess because it's destroy target non-basic land, like Wizard of the Coast is pretty careful with how they print land hate into standard metagames and into standard sets, so I could see that as well. It just feels like the most fair version of that. It's a 4/4, it is flying, gets around some of the more traditional removal spells. It still does get dismembered, not too common of a removal spell, but it still does exist in the metagame. But again, a piece of sideboard tech that's just great for these decks. The big point against this is that it's helping the Domain Zoo deck, it's helping the energy deck, so it's like but every deck deserves to have an answer against other decks, or at least some type of game, even if it's unfavored. There should always be answers, which is what Obsidian Charmaw is here to do. I also don't like the fact that it's from Modern Horizons 2, but it's okay. We can move on to the last deck, which is Dimir Mill. I haven't talked about Mill in a hot minute. I promise y'all, I have not forgotten about y'all Mill players. I just haven't been wanting to play this in Modern because even though the metagame is solved, metagame's going to change in a minute. I have no motivation to play it. Right? I want to play a ton of Pauper right now, maybe a little bit of Legacy to continue learning it. Modern, I'm just kind of waiting for it to change over into the new metagame. Dimir Mill, I think I'll tell you what, I cheated a little with this one. I just wanted to talk about Mill. I'm that Mill guy. I just wanted to talk about Mill. Really, the innovation that this deck has had is that not only have we naturally been able to get around the One Ring for a very long time, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Fractured Sanity, Ruined Crab on the board here. Obviously, Archive Trap and Ruined Crab get hit by those. If you're playing Glimpse the Unthinkable, yes. If you're playing Jace the Perfected Mind, yes. Those get affected by Mill, but we can eventually get there. We can hold off. We don't, you play the One Ring, you then do your fetch. Whatever. We can find a way. The big other tech is Surgical Extraction. And I say that because in a metagame where combo is at the top and predictable creature-based strategies are there where you can circumvent the One Ring, Mill is here to eat. And I think it's because a lot of people don't naturally play Mill. I think Boros Energy, to be fair, I think we do have a positive win rate against if you tech against it right. Murktide decks we've never had a great matchup with. You just take the loss there. Mardu's a little bit better because Orcish Bowmasters is an insane magic card. But when it comes to Boros Energy, I think if you play enough wipes, like I really love Knight of Souls Betrayal against Boros Energy, but I think a lot of people are opting for Toxic Deluge just as a better catch-all, especially because it hits like the other creature-based strategies, and then Surgical Extraction against the combo decks. Storm is a little bit hard. They tend to go off a little bit faster, but even still, having access to Extirpate as well out of the board. Surgical Extraction not only for the combo decks, but the land-based strategies like Titan, Tron, Eldrazi. It all has relevancy, especially in a metagame where you can come up against Breach and have Emrakul in the main board. Having something like Surgical Extraction and be the best deck in the metagame to take advantage of that. That's the type of innovation I always like to see. There's been back and forths in metagame of whether or not it's time to have Surgical in the main board. Should it be Spell Pierce in the main board? There's always been back and forths about that, but I'm just really happy to see that if we had more players kind of jamming Mill in the leagues, and especially in the challenges, I really feel like Mill would have been a lot better. And we've seen that out of Tibalt to the red sub winning multiple, or not even just winning, but top 8ing, top 32, top 64, whatever, multiple modern challenges throughout the last year, throughout the past couple of months with modern Mill, and just doing God's work with Mill, doing a lot in terms of fighting this metagame, having the tech, having the expertise. It's just one of those decks that really rewards high pilot skill, but it is one of those decks that requires a solved metagame. You really need to know what you're teching against. It's not Burn where you can take advantage of a metagame that's in flux. You really need a metagame to be solved so you can play the correct sideboard pieces, know to play Surgical in the main, not, maybe more Spell Pierces, maybe more removal, drop Jace, play Tasha's, not play Tasha's if the metagame is really low to the ground. These are the type of decisions that you have to make in a solved metagame. In a solved metagame like right now, Mill is actually in a really good spot. So it's going to be up in the air. I'm definitely going to be playing it post bans as well, but it's really going to have to wait for about a month after for the metagame to settle, maybe closer to the end of January, and then we'll really be able to see where the metagame goes, have a little bit of success with Mill, and then have Universes Beyond maybe ruin it all over again. But that's where I'm at with my favorite sideboard techs and innovations in Modern right now. Let me know if I missed one piece of sideboard tech or a couple pieces of sideboard tech that you're a big fan of in the decks that you've been playing. Tell me what decks you're really excited for to come back into the metagame. Honestly, let me know in the comment section down below. If you're this far in the video, should we ban Orcish Bowmasters? Let's ban Orcish Bowmasters and have card draw be good again. Let's have Affinity come back into this metagame. Ban Orcish Bowmasters. Let's let Affinity be good again. Let's let the modern metagame be great. Although maybe Orcish Bowmasters is stopping something that we are unaware of. I don't know. I hate that goddamn card. But regardless, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe for more positive content that isn't about yelling about the modern metagame sometimes. And enjoy the rest of your week ahead of the bans.